It's an annual tradition back after a break last year because of the coronavirus. Political rallies at the Illinois State Fair. And it's an annual tradition for us to have Amanda Vinicky join us from the State Fair just outside Springfield. Amanda, what's the intrigue there, and did you eat any deep fried Oreos or Twinkies?
No deep fried Oreos or Twinkies, though that is a staple here, as are, of course, cows, pigs, funnel cakes, lemon shake-ups, corn dogs, but also, yes, Paris politics. It is the state's end of summer unofficial kickoff to campaign season, the Illinois State Fair, and these political rallies, because typically the fair is about a half a year away from the primaries. But this year the calendar is a little off. That's because Democrats haven't drawn a new map for congressional districts, and so they passed a law moving what would be the March primary back until June. So there's more time, which means that incumbents like Congresswoman Lauren Underwood don't know the districts that they're going to be running in, and they also don't know their potential competition.
When Democrats win, when we flip seats, we bring change. And we cannot lose sight of that as the goal, even if we do not know who's running in the upcoming elections. The work has to start now. 2022 is a must-win scenario. There is no opportunity for failure.
There was a lot of that sort of messaging today. Remember, if you're attending these events, you are a tried and true Democrat. And I noticed that the most people cheered the loudest whenever somebody took jabs at former President Donald Trump. Now, during his speech, Governor J.B. Pritzker also started off with criticism of his predecessor, former GOP Governor Bruce Rauner, before he moved to talk about his handling of the coronavirus pandemic.
And who is fighting to protect the lives and the livelihoods of our fellow Illinoisans during this deadly global pandemic? Over and over, it's Democrats that deliver for the people of Illinois.
But there was a distraction from his rallying cries. The governor spoke this afternoon at a picnic on the actual fairgrounds, but he skipped this morning what's really Democrats' main event, and that is a really massive brunch that this year was attended by approximately 1,000 Democratic leaders from around the state. Now, at first, his campaign had said that he wasn't going to be in attendance because of COVID, but then this brunch, normally held inside a hotel ballroom, got moved outdoors, and still the governor skipped. Seemingly, it was a quick trip back and forth just this morning to Chicago, so his only brunch appearance was a pre-recorded video. Organizers downplayed the governor's absence.
This is why you work so hard to elect Democratic leaders. So whatever you may read in the press, Democrats in Illinois are united. There's too much at stake to be divided.
Now, as did Pritzker himself.
There are some people who try to write that people are boycotting or not going to something because they don't want to, they don't want to be there. The truth is that we're all very busy. As you know, every day I've had about 10 events that I've had to attend, whether it's here in the State Fair or back up in Chicago. So I try to get to everything that I can, and I support every Democrat that was at the IDCCA event this morning.
But it comes as the Democratic Party of Illinois itself is in transition. For the first time in a long time, former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan is no longer the party chair. Instead, that's Congresswoman Robin Kelly, who was elected by party leaders this March over Pritzker's pick for the job.
Make sure that Democrats are in the House on every level of government. It's not just about who's the president. It's who's the mayor, who's the senator, who's on the library board, the school board. That's how they build the bench.
Speaking of transition, it's not just who is the Democratic Party chair, but also how that position operates. Because of federal campaign laws, Kelly, again, a congresswoman, is restricted in performing what's really the main job of party chair, fundraising. And so as a get around, top Democrats created a committee. They did this just yesterday. It is going to have to work completely separately from Kelly to raise and to spend contributions. Kelly is framing this as a way to make the party more diverse, to include more voices, and points out that other members of Congress, like the head of Georgia's Democratic Party, are doing the same thing.
I'm not the first person in Congress to be in this position, and you can look at Nikema Williams and see Ossoff and Warnock. It worked down there, okay? And give us a chance. And I see it as an asset. I don't see it as a vulnerability. We're going to make sure we stay as blue as we are now.
Now, she mentioned Georgia because one of the Peach State's rising Democratic stars, that is U.S. Senator Jon Ossoff, headlined the brunch. Ossoff won election in January. It was a really tight contest, and that helped to flip control of the U.S. Senate to Democrats.
Now is the time to pass a new Voting Rights Act and a new Civil Rights Act to make real those promises of equal rights and equal justice. Now is the time to believe again, Illinois, to push this country to higher and higher heights. Thank you for having me.
Now, Democrats winning statewide in Georgia may be relatively uncommon, but it is not a rarity in Illinois. Democrats rule the roost here. Someone today even had replicas of a baseball that evidently was signed in 2018 by members of what they called the Dream Team, Democrats who swept that year's statewide races. And now most of that Dream Team is hoping for a repeat in the 22 elections, but one constitutional officer will not be on next year's ballot, and that's Secretary of State Jesse White.
I had no intentions of running this last time, but I was at a union hall, and the director of the union halls decided they should get me involved with the draft. And so as it turned out, all of the unions across the state of Illinois got involved with the draft. So they forced me to run for re-election. And this time, gentlemen, it won't work.
White has been in office since 1998, so his vacating it has kicked off what's really the most competitive race in the Democratic primary. You have 4 Democrats, now we're going to hear from them in the order that they spoke at this morning's brunch. Each had a chance to make their pitch to the party faithful.
I will build on the legacy of service, on his legacy of service. I make that promise to you, and I make that promise to the people of Illinois.
I'm running for Secretary of State to restore trust in our ability to make things better. We know what we need to do: restore faith in government, put folks back to work.
For me, as I run for Secretary of State, what's important to me is making sure that we are giving a seat and a voice to our young people. Our young people have so much to offer.
It's time for us to choose the past or the future, to elect the first woman, Latina, mom, and millennial as Secretary of State in the history of Illinois.
Now, while they have competition, the candidates for Secretary of State do have a benefit, and that is that they're able to get started early with endorsements, fundraising, and making speeches here in the State Fair. And that is because, unlike candidates for pretty much every other office, from state legislature to Congress, they're running statewide, so they don't have to worry about the maps and districts, which, yes, are still unsettled. With that, here live from the fairgrounds, right by a Ferris wheel, Paris, sending it back to you.